Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. This is Block Party. We did lose 7-10 on Monday Night Football to the world champion Philadelphia Eagles last night. Packer fans, thanks for watching these. If you're enjoying, please like, subscribe, rate, and review on our YouTube channel, Process to Perform. Also, this will be on the Pack a Day podcast. You can check it out there. Andy Herman's platform. Thanks, Andy, for putting this on. We're just going to answer some listener questions today. I did get to the tape, did not get an opportunity to spice it up. And quite frankly, it's just all kinds of ugly. And sometimes situations, and like you get to this, and you even get on Twitter right now, and everybody's guilty of it to some extent because there's just not a lot of good. But what happens is there's just a ton of piling on, and especially from a lot of enthusiastic people that are maybe uninformed about the nuances of football. And so you get some information that, I just got some information or some questions on Twitter on somebody else's stuff, which I don't even want to contribute to because I'm not sure that we're all seeing the same thing, which is fine. And this is part of the fun, part of the entertainment of this game is to be emotional about your teams and support your teams. But one thing we don't really want to do is, or at least I don't want to do, is like I want to inform and entertain. I don't want to pile on. I don't want to create takes. I don't want to create all this stuff. It's just not what I'm interested in doing. I do have some takeaways from this game and some things that I saw on the film, just watching it back now, and reasons why we might be struggling. Look, this is the third time in this season that we've lost the game while our defense has given up 16 points or less. Now, I have never in my entire career, I can't remember a scenario in modern football where that stat makes sense, but with an offense that is historically as potent as the Green Bay Packers offense. So we're in kind of uncharted territory right now. Certainly you always have to ask the question, what is this going to do to the locker room? My answer quickly is nothing. You have people, those are all pros, those are all grown men. I think everybody's rowing in the same direction. They seem to like each other in that locker room. And so, there's always this give and take and this ebb and flow. Sometimes the defense is playing well. Sometimes the offense is playing well. Hopefully both sides are playing well when it comes playoff time, when it really matters, when it comes down to crunch time. Now, there can be a ton of questions about the play calling, Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love. Look, the thing that is, with all of those comments, the thing that is most interesting to me watching the tape back is, I think, one, from a game plan standpoint, it looked like we were unprepared for some of the looks that they've showed on tape. And I'm particularly talking about, we knew they're going to run cover 4, and they more often than not take the backside safety and try to trap or poach that trip to the trip side. So they take, if you got three guys over there, and you got a safety over here, and they're running quarters, a lot of times that guy's eyes are over here waiting for one of those guys to cross, and they're going to trap or poach or whatever you want to call it. That means that if you've got a single safety, you're going to have a one-on-one with that corner on the backside. I didn't think we had a lot of answers for that backside corner. You saw that crossing routes started to become the most successful way to move the football right around the second, third quarter. I don't know if we got to them fast enough. I don't know if we called enough of them. And quite frankly, I think the quarterback started seeing the rush in this game early and often. I think this is one of the, if you start looking at the hard part with the Green Bay Packers sometimes, and Jordan Love, and everybody wants to talk about, he throws a lot of balls at or behind the line of scrimmage. And I think that's part of the offense, and putting people in situations in space with the ball is how you have a lot of success. Sean McVay showed that better than anybody over the course of the last, half decade. I think one of the difficulties is when you're a guy like Jordan Love who likes to drive the ball down the field, your footwork's not always great. We see a couple times in this game where, I don't know, is it a 3-step drop? Is it a 5-step drop? You on your back foot, you look like you want to throw the ball. You're off of rhythm. Neither guy's come out of the break yet. Whose fault is that? And how does that – all of those questions, kind of need to be answered internally, because what ends up happening, and what happened in this game, is you get pressured, you get sacked, sometimes you give up a fumble, etc. But a lot of that is just like you're not – you're ready to throw and those guys aren't. And that usually means that the rhythm in the pocket, your drops are not, you don't have, if you're Jordan Love, you're looking at your footwork, you're going like, okay, I don't have the most clinical footwork in the National Football League. I don't have to have the most clinical, but as far as this footwork goes, and we've talked about it and addressed it on this show for years, that's an area of opportunity for him. How is it being addressed? Is it being addressed at all within that quarterback room? When you look at games like this, sometimes you don't know. there's different ways to look at to read a defense. There's, you can go the kind of the left to right progressions. You have your pure progressions, which is just, I start on the right side, for example, go all the way to the left. On some of the pure progression looks last night, you see the quarterback getting the ball and having opportunities maybe to throw what's given to them, given the fact that they're running a 4-deep shell, running 25-yard deeps with the safeties. And he is kind of maybe trying to work through the first three, maybe to the fourth read, and then maybe the check down late, and the pressures get into you, and all these things kind of happen. It just doesn't look like they're on the same page with what we're trying to get out of every single play, at least in the passing game. And that's something that you just have to address. I mean, there's clearly, like, when you look at a lot of the routes that we're running, a lot of the vertical stuff, they're not going to be effective against the Philadelphia Eagles, just the way that the Eagles are running their defense, particularly against this team. They were going to, let you – we saw it with Josh Jacobs, I think, on the third play of the game for the first down. They get deep. They throw the swing to Josh. Josh, they rally tackle and tackle Jacobs we ended up getting a first down there. But that was going to be the game plan. Hey, we don't think you can go the length of the field without, us getting a sack, tackle for loss, you giving up get you stupid penalty or a drop pass or something that's going to prevent you from being successful. I mean, that is how they've been playing football. They do it extremely well. And for all of the, the commentary about, why are you running the football? Why are you doing, the base level answer is you've got a light box. You've got two deep safety looks. Yes, they do take advantage of some run formations where those guys come down at the snap of the football, just like Evan Williams does. But when you see a 6-man box and you can't run the football, you're in a lot of trouble. Now, I think the question that I would get into about the run game, and I think when I start talking about the details and, really when you want to start analyzing or critiquing some of the stuff that you maybe, see online from the experts about, who should be calling the plays, Matt LaFleur's job, Jordan Love as a quarterback, all this, whatever. Like, let's try to have a good conversation about what it is that is actually not happening on the field and how that directly ties to whatever facet of coaching or execution is the real problem. Because, like, when you watch this run game, for example, we can start with, first of all, we saw jumbo personnel last night. Absolutely love it. Thought it would be fantastic. Unfortunately, the first time we have success with it, they cover up they cover up 70 as a eligible receiver, so that a good gain gets wiped out. Like, execution, right? Plays in, got to execute. Can't line up right. Everybody's seen that. Josh Jacobs and I forgot who ran into each other on the shallow crossers. Execution. They've run that play a million times. Can't figure it out. We've got 12 personnel. We've got 2 tight ends. Neither of them can really block. Guy steps the wrong way on the backside of a play, gets beat across his face by Nolan Smith. Josh Jacobs gets 1 yard gain, 0 yard gain. Another going into his 3.5 yards per carry. Execution, right? We line up 86 on Jalen Phillips on a quick toss where he's supposed to reach a guy that's 5 yards out. Now, should we be calling that play without having a competent, inline blocker? Probably not, but it is an execution play. Those are where this stuff gets interesting. Interior offensive line. You can see guys coming through the A-gap all the time in this game. Guys getting beat inside from a guard position, blitzing linebackers. One time we see Aaron Banks having to block the 3 technique on the technique. The guy slips inside. While Elton Jenkins is still in the game before he gets hurt. It's unfortunate with his injury, by the way. But he bypasses, like, kind of what you would just think of. We call it like an AA look, but basically helping the play side guard up to the linebacker. He goes up to the linebacker. Rasheed Walker goes up to the same linebacker. So we got 4 hands on a 230-pound linebacker, and one of the best D tackles in the league is being one-on-one blocked by Aaron Banks. Like, that stuff doesn't make sense to me. And that happened more than one time on both sides of the center. So the execution, the attention to detail is, for me, much more of an interesting conversation than play design, personnel, all of the other stuff. Because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, This is one of the, and it's easy to say when they score 7 points, but this is one of the most poorly executed football games offensively that you're going to watch. And part of that is how good Philadelphia's defense is. And even if they're not playing maybe at the level they were during the Super Bowl run last year, the fact that those people are on the field and they have those capabilities, and then Jalen Phillips coming in and just bringing some absolute juice with how he played this football game, some of that is going to affect emotionally how you're entering into this game, and maybe that affects cognitively how you're making plays, passing information along to your teammates, etc., decision-making processes before and after the snap. But this stuff, and I go through my notes here, and you've got, linebacker run through, left guard beat backside for a 1-yard gain, toss play, crack block with the tight end. They didn't really run the toss crack, but they ended up kind of running it with a down block and turning the tight end into a fullback. It was a 10-yard gain, first down run. We ran it one time. We talked about that in the pregame. Toss cracks, jumbo packages, like they have that stuff in. Even when we execute it, we don't maybe run it again. When we had a chance to execute it, we executed it well. We covered up the guy in the line of scrimmage. Like, these are the problems. The batted balls, those happen. You start the second series of the game. I have it right here. We have a where did I have that? Second series of the game. What did I write down? We have the fumble. We have the batted ball. We had a sack. And we had a drop pass. That's, a lot of that, it's so easy. So here's why I say that. It's so easy to get on the play calling, but you had a fumble for the second week in a row. The batted ball, those happen with a Jalen Carter. And by the way, we're spending a lot of time. We had 4 hands on Jalen Carter as often as possible. So he's going to jump up and bat balls down. You got to drive block him and punch him in the stomach when he jumps. The drop balls, the execution, the timing on the routes, like that stuff is what I'm more, I guess, concerned about, or what jumps off the screen is me as a coach, a technical guy, and then a guy who played in the league, is the attention to detail is just severely, severely lacking. The attention to detail and communication and execution severely, severely lacking. Jordan Love didn't have his best day, 20 for 36, 176. Like, the thing is, you're looking at the rush a lot, and it's one of the games, and I think these happen against something with the Green Bay Packers that'll bother you, is that I think sometimes teams sometimes pad your stats against bad teams. So like my kid's soccer team, when they were younger, like they'd beat a bad team 8-0. They go beat a good team, they lose by 2. And it's like, well, which one are you? It's like you're the same team, right? You can pad your stats against better, or teams that aren't quite hitting their stride, but we get in these big moments. Like, are we putting together the kind of product that we're proud of? And right now, it kind of feels that way a little bit, where there's all these stats that say this offense is so good and we're throwing the ball so well and we have this completion percentage, blah 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 blah. But it's like, how does that translate to executing against good defenses? Yeah, we're still kind of figuring that out as we go, and that's fine. That's just part of the deal. We had 3 fumbles, we lost 2. They had 5 tackles for loss on defense. Our defense, no sacks, which was interesting. We kind of talked about that from a pregame standpoint. They did have 6 tackles for loss. I thought they played fantastic. I mean, look, you scored 10 points. You played fantastic. I just thought it was great. There are some questions about. There's not questions. There are always, in hindsight, there's always better plays you could be running. Even plays that are successful. And you hit the deep cross or the middle of the field on the guy to have it play in the end of the game to Christian Watson. Like, it's all or nothing there. The only other play he's going to have, the way that they've been playing defense all night, with you got 2 out routes on the outside with guys that are playing outside leverage, and you got your swing pass, and that's it. Like, he either hits that ball or we go home. We end up going home anyways, but that's the stuff that happens. One thing one thing that can't be understated is how much we missed Tucker Kraft in this game, not only from a blocking standpoint, but from, turning checkdowns into first down. And unfortunately for Luke Musgrave, like case in point, Musgrave catches the ball on the 65th play of the offensive game, and he has an opportunity to get a first down, and he turns and just kind of like, you can see one of his legs kind of go dead. Like he just kind of falls forward, he gets tackled, and it's 4th and 1, which ends up in what is going to be infamous. Jalen Phillips got all this, ton of credit there. The reality is they called out what the play was. Boy, I'm just losing my mind here. So Jalen Phillips got credited for the play, but Jalen Carter ends up blowing up our right guard. And so Josh Jacobs has to decide, like, I'm now having to make a cut 2 yards in the backfield because our right guard got blown up. Jumps cuts to the right instead of the left because he sees that 97 tried to swim the left guard and center. Center ends up getting on the ground. By the way, side note, Sean Ryan played center really well last night. We are losing probably Elgton Jenkins for the season. That sucks, man. One thing that if there's a silver lining, Sean Ryan, and we were talking about this on the Andy Herman podcast, Sean Ryan looked good yesterday at center. He didn't look great. He wasn't a world beater, but the things that matter that we've talked about on this podcast, footwork, stay square to the line of scrimmage, gets his hips engaged, and tries to stick on people. Now, is he great at it? No. Is he going to be? Could he be an upgrade there? Like, could this be a long-term solution? Let's put it that way, knowing that Elgton Jenkins has $20 million promised to him next year. I think so. He looked good. I'll be interested to see what he looks like with a week under his belt. The problem is, Jordan Morgan is, that's just not the position for him. I've said a lot there. Let's get to some of these listener questions, guys. Thanks for getting them in. Let's see if I can. All right. And away we go. Okay. I'll get as many as we can here. We'll do about 10, 15 minutes of this. What does the O-line lack that prevents us from being effective in the run game? Jacobs getting hit in the backfield. I think, we kind of just addressed it. The number one thing is when the tight ends had to make a block, they did not make a block very well for the most part. And even plays that were successful, I think we ran a toss out the left side. Tight end gets hit right in the mouth, right? Jacobs just runs around him, ends up making a decent play. I thought the stuff in the backfield was kind of interesting, quite frankly. As far as putting a guy at the fullback position. Again, that's just an angle that a lot of these linebackers and outside guys aren't used to seeing. So that's like a lot of these plays we think are effective, or I like these formations now. It's not because I'm old school. Well, it is a little bit because I'm old school, but it's not just because I'm used to seeing them. It's because like they literally have changed the body shape of the guys that have to take on those blocks and the experience of like a fullback hitting you in the A gap. Most of these linebackers have never seen that. They didn't see it in high school. They didn't see it in college. They haven't seen it now. So, that's why I like a lot of this stuff. The counts for defenses are different. Like the shotgun run, you saw it last night, man. Like the shotgun run, it's just there's two things the Packers they did address during the night that I thought were interesting. One, they tried the toss crack-ish play. We'll just call that we'll call that a toss play with a lead, and it worked. They only ran it once. I don't know why. The other thing they did was they realized very early they weren't going to run the worst play in football that I've been talking about with the shotgun kind of horizontal run. They took that out. They replaced it with an under center off tackle run that sucked. It was just as bad. Not quite as bad, to be fair. Not quite as bad, but it was not good because we don't win at that position, that guard position. We just had a really hard time again last night winning at that guard position against a good 3 technique. They did have more success running downhill. And I thought that was interesting. And the reason, in my opinion, that they had more success was, in large part, you got better doubles, not only with Jenkins and Banks, but also, and maybe more to the point, with Sean Ryan and company when he was playing center. You got some decent cover up and movement. Even if you didn't get the movement, you got people staying square to the line of scrimmage. I think Sean Ryan's footwork really is going to help out that scenario. So, why are these guys struggling? Their technique hasn't been good. They played a really good team last night, but you didn't have Tucker Kraft and you're putting those guys in. That jumbo package worked, man. Like, if you go back and watch all the jumbo plays that they ran, just take out the fact that they covered up the guy for the penalty. Like, that was an effective package. They probably didn't use it enough. They probably go back and film today and go, okay, we need to figure out how to use this more because we don't have the tight ends can run that 12 personnel. Let's go to jumbo 12. Is there a conceivable reason to run a zone run on a have to have it on fourth down? I think everybody in the building knew that that's what they were running because they ran it kind of hurry up. I know that it's been reported now that the right defensive tackle was calling out the play. Obviously, Carter knew exactly what it was because he put the right guard 2 yards in the backfield and blew the play up. But just based on where Josh Jacobs is lined up, how fast that was happening, like that seemed like, if you're watching on TV, like, oh, shoot, that's what they're going to run. It did feel like in that situation, well, one, you want Musgrave to get the first down and fight for it a little bit more. But two, you want to make sure whatever you got in that you feel really good about. For me, it's like, is it worth it to spend a little more clock time just to get yourself in a better position? It's always tough right there. You want to think that you're going to be able to get a half a yard on an inside zone play, and they've been getting half yards on those plays all night. Unfortunately, only half yards are yards, but it's just one of those things you don't expect somebody to get blown up 2 yards in the backfield. It's a bad deal.
Hey, friends, let's get our sleeper picks in for this upcoming Sunday. Rams, Seahawks. This one has the ability to be unbelievably epic. Who would have thought that going into the season? But let's make it a little bit more epic with sleeper. I'm going super simple on this one. The two most dynamic receivers in the NFL right now, Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith-Njigba, to both score touchdowns in this game. Jackson Smith-Njigba, more than 1/2 touchdown scored. Puka Nacua, more than 1/2 touchdown scored. I'm going to say they both score in this game in this must-have NFC West matchup. You can get your sleeper picks in, of course, over on Sleeper. Make it a little bit more fun. Make sure you get them in for Thursday Night Football, Sunday Football, Monday Night Football. Anytime there's football, it's awesome to do. The best part is that you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. Of course, they are available in over 25 states nationwide. So what are you waiting for? Get your sleeper picks in right now. Hey friends, Andy Herman here. Before we get back to Mike Wahle, who is absolutely amazing, by the way, just shout out to Mike for all these incredible film breakdowns coming on with the live Q&A on Mondays. And then, of course, with our regular podcast as well. If you haven't checked those out yet, make sure to do so. But before we get back to Mike, just want to shout out our two sponsors for today's show. First of all, Luigi's Frozen Pizzas. If you haven't checked these out yet, what are you waiting for? A little bit of buzz, by the way, that there's going to be some news around Luigi's Pizza. So keep an eye out for that. The best way to do so is to follow them on social media at Luigi's Pizza, and make sure you're checking out luigispizza.com as well. You can see their whole line of pizzas, also the store locator, so you can find the Luigi's Pizza nearest to you. Find them in your local grocer in the freezer section. They're absolutely delicious. You're going to want to get a bunch and celebrate our Victory Mondays right alongside of me by enjoying a delicious Luigi's frozen pizza. Also, Alchemy Wealth Management, retirewithryan.net. This is a unbelievable offer. You get to go to their website, retirewithryan.net, and for free, do one of two things. Either download all the great materials they have for you to just on your own help you with your financial future, or what I highly recommend, set up that free consultation with Ryan. He's going to help you on your retirement journey, on your financial journey, wherever you are at with your walk, whether that be near retirement, retired already, or just starting to think about it. Wherever you are at, he's going to be able to help you. Check it out over at retirewithryan.net. Ryan Nelson, Alchemy Wealth Management. Cannot recommend it enough. And a huge thank you to Ryan for partnering with us and also providing that free service to all of our viewers. Now it is time to get back to the one and only Mike Wahle.
Did Sean Ryan look any better at Jenkinson Center? I don't want to sit here and say he's the second coming of Dermontti Dawson, because that's not fair to anybody, but I thought he looked pretty good. We've been talking about it. We weren't sure how he was going to look, if it was a good idea. It looks like I'm bullish on it, to be honest with you. I was bullish on it in the preseason. I was bullish on it in the offseason when they brought in Banks, and it was kind of a head scratcher. I'm bullish on it now. I I think unfortunately, it's always unfortunate when somebody gets injured, but you are going to, again, silver lining. You get to see some of this stuff now, and I think it's not a bad thing. How would you reshuffle this offensive line since the group is clearly not working? 77 to left tackle finally. Mike Wahle, listen, I don't understand your enthusiasm to take out Rasheed Walker, who's been your second best offensive lineman, and replace him with the guy who's been your sixth best offensive lineman. I wouldn't think that made sense. Given the injury, I think this time it takes care of itself, doesn't it? You have your left tackle, your left guard. Now you have your center at Sean Ryan. Jordan Morgan is probably going to continue to get the opportunity to play at right guard. And, of course, Zach Tom's going to play at tackle. Do you give Belton a chance at right guard? Maybe. I think the problem is now I think you're pot committed. I think you're halfway through the season. You're 5-3-1 now. You're trying to figure yourself out. You've got a quick turnaround here because of the Monday Night Football game. And this just it doesn't feel like right now when you have that transition now from Elgin Jenkins to Sean Ryan having to play center because of injury, it doesn't feel like you're going to transition or change anything else because they want to keep everything else as status quo as possible. They've got a lot. I mean, the reality is they make a lot of communication errors on the offensive line. There's a lot of the really, really bad technique on the offensive line. I'm saying that wanting to show them as much love as possible. Like I try to show Zach Tom as much love as possible. I think he's a fantastic player. I think Rasheed Walker has done a fantastic job since he was inserted a couple of years ago. He had a couple of hiccups last year, but you saw that he changed his set. We addressed, we try to talk about all this positive stuff, right? I love the fact that Aaron Banks, when Nolan Smith takes out Aaron Banks and Rasheed Walker on the counter yesterday, Aaron Banks gets up and shoves him. Like I love the fight that he has in him, right? It just is very alarming, particularly on the interior, sometimes how poor the footwork is, how poor the hand placement is, and how poor the communication is. And you just don't think that it's being prioritized in the meeting rooms in the film review if it continues to happen the way it's happening. That's the only unfortunate thing about like being on this side of the camera now is you have to point out the obvious. Let's see here. What changes can we actually make on the offense in the season to salvage any playoff hopes? First time I've had the thought of the format actually be on the hot seat. The hot seat thing. Look, here's the thing that sucks about social media. Owners read it. Presidents read it. The media, it's everywhere. So you have one of the better play designers and play callers in the league. Now, does everybody hit a rough patch? And for different reasons. Romeo Doubs gets hurt last night. Matthew Golden's out. Your best player, offensive player, Tucker Kraft, this year is out for the year. Jaden Reed's out, right? You just got Christian Watson back. Like you don't have a competent tight end room anymore, and you run a lot of 12 personnel. Like you got a lot of issues, right? You made a choice to bring in, some free agents that haven't necessarily worked out in combination with other guys like you thought it might. All of that stuff he's having to deal with in real time with all the scrutiny. What happens is Jordan Love seeing the rush for the first time in a long time. Now you read about all of this shit and people are talking to you about it. And yeah, you try to insulate yourself, but the reality is, the media addresses it, the social media guys address it. If you were in a place that had an owner, the owner will come and talk to you about it, right? And all the guys that are above your pay grade start talking about this stuff, and becomes a self-perpetuating thing, right? Like maybe they're not thinking about him seeing the rush or not, hitting the fifth progression on your pre-progression read from right to left or whatever it is, right? Like maybe that's something maybe they have bigger fish to fry, but unfortunately some of this stuff starts coming up and it gets in the back of your head, and then it ends up, it's like when you feel like you can't block a 3 technique, and it's like you can block a 3 tech. But if you hear it from enough people, or you don't have belief in yourself, or sometimes this stuff becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I think that's maybe some of the issues with what's going on offense in particular. Again, I go back to the attention to detail. I don't think you need to make changes in the offense. I think you need to be much more detailed and demanding about each individual's responsibility and execution. So you take the positional requirements of each position on offense, and you break it down to what the basic things are. Is it, catching the football? Is it running? Is it running the right routes? Is it releases? Is it blocking? Is it initial footwork? Is it hand placement? And you go like, we're going to drill the shit out of that and hyper focus on it until you guys get it right. Because I don't see any other way around this. Like you have all these weapons, you have a great play designer. If things aren't working, you fumble a snap, you drop a pass, you give up a sack when you shouldn't give up a sack. You get beat inside the A gap twice in the last 2 out of the last 3 plays of the drive that ended in the fumble. Like these things are picked up, man. They just aren't being executed correctly. Like there's no other way to say it. And I don't know what that reason is. I have some thoughts about specific positions, but it's very difficult. Why on earth are you not throwing the ball until late game? Absolutely got to have it situations. I think that they came in and said, "Hey, we need to run the." That's a great question. Coming into the game from the preview show, we talked about how the secondary for the Philadelphia Eagles was going to be able to. You were going to get some stuff out of it, right? Now, that's obviously predicated on who's playing and what routes you're running. If you're running a lot of vertical routes, it's going to be difficult. Unless you get that backside, which we talked about in the show, which they just really didn't address. To be fair, crossing routes are going to be there if you're not seeing the rush or you're not feeling pressured and you have to escape the pocket. I think for me the caveat for them was like, okay, they just brought in Jalen Phillips, Dolan Swift's back. They got a D tackle that's one of the better athletes in the National Football League. They've got linebackers who can rush the passer. Do we want this line to have to block those guys and Jordan have to sit back there? Or do we want to establish this run game? Which, to be fair, if you watch the last couple of weeks of tape for the Philadelphia Eagles, like there's opportunities. You're not going to get these big plays, but yeah, can you get 4.5, 5 yards a carry? Yeah, consistently you should be able to because you have a Josh Jacobs kind of player. Problem is you don't have Tucker Kraft anymore. You have a couple of positions on the line that are getting beat consistently. And so, again, if you're Matt LaFleur, I can have a commentary about like, do I like some of the play calls from just like run design standpoint or how they're running things? You can talk about that, but the concept, like you don't fault him for wanting to establish a running game to try to get him out of that too high look. The problem is Philly was never going to get out of the too high look because they always thought they were better in the box than we were. And it's easy for us to sit here and go like, oh, well, I guess got to throw it against too high. Sometimes you have to, but you sure as shit don't want to against those guys, especially when they start bringing 5-man pressures and like you got a real problem. That's a really good defense, and they're starting to play better. So, and we got the breath of it last night, unfortunately. Are we better with Ryan at left guard, Morgan at right tackle? Morgan at right tackle. Jenkins, Monk at center. I thought Ryan had struggles, but he battled. That's a tough one. I'm just going to go back to, I think we should, we're going to keep it. Ryan's probably going to play center. Is Evan Williams as good as I think? Yeah, I think Evan Williams is a really good player. And good players have good plays and bad plays. They have a lot more good plays and bad plays. Evan Williams has a lot of good plays. You love the way he feels. Saw it early last season, and he's just continued to grow. Obviously, he was all over the tape last night. It's probably why you're bringing it up. Like he got mentioned in the comments a couple times on TV, but he was well deserved, man. He's a very good player. The only answer is that Matt LaFleur should not be calling plays for this team anymore, and his seat should be extremely hot. Okay, well, sometimes I think Dan Quinn just said he's going to take over the defensive coordinator responsibilities. We saw Dan Campbell take over the offensive coordinator play calling responsibilities. One thing that was perplexing last night is you did see they shot to a thing where Matt LaFleur was looking at the Surface tablet, going writing notes, blah blah blah, blah, and then going over and talking to Jordan. And it, for whatever reason, maybe it was just because of the situation, maybe it was his demeanor, maybe it was because we're not doing well on offense. It felt it felt like a little bit of desperation. It felt a little bit like desperation. And I'm not a proponent of giving up the play calling duties. I am a proponent of, I would like to have a forensic breakdown with my offensive coaching staff of what the expectation levels are for each room. I just don't think we're demanding enough from that standpoint of how we're executing. It just like it was one of the worst. It was one of the most poorly executed games I've seen. There's just no getting around it. When do we start Willis? We don't. Is the offensive play calling as bad as we think, or is Love's decision making just as bad? 4th and 1 game in the line and taking a timeout. Okay, well, everyone's got that idea. The run out of shotgun's tough. Obviously, singling up Jordan Morgan on Jalen Carter's a really tough idea in that situation. I certainly think, because you're talking about your weakest link versus their best player. I wouldn't particularly be a proponent of doing that. I try to get 4 hands on him if I could. I don't go back. I don't think the play calling's as bad as we think. I think Jordan Love I think when you look at the tape, he passes over some gimmies. I think Jalen Hurts takes a lot of the gimmies, takes a lot of the layups, takes a lot of the 5-yarders. And sometimes those 5-yarders turn into 41-yarders like it did with Saquon Barkley. And I think that there's enough evidence on film where Jordan Love's bypassing some plays, or maybe he's just not ready to throw, or the timing's off because, his pocket footwork, leaves a lot to be desired. That could be something. That could certainly be something. The Eagles' right guard is moving, rocking at the snap all night. He taps the center, but hardly ever gets set. Half the time he's fading backwards, no false start penalties. Not even any talk about it. Is that legal? You're such a great question, and I saw it all night, and the only thing that I can come up with there is there's a minute level of wiggle room written into the playbook. I thought it was just with uncovered linemen, like the guy at the end of the line, like the tackle, and it has to do with how you move your back foot in this. But I saw the exact same thing, and I think what's happening is if you don't move your feet before the ball snap, first of all, they missed some calls early. Everybody saw them. So they're just having a hard time with that anyways. But if you don't move your feet, and it almost feels like the guy was tapping up and snapping, it was like bang, bang, bang. So he's leaning into it. They're not waiting like a half second like a lot of teams would do. You get like a count, like a center moves his head, 1,000 go. They're moving it so fast that I just don't think they were in a situation where they could consistently call that. If they throw the flag once, it's interesting to see what they do the rest of the game. Is this coaching or execution or both? Everything's always both. Everything's always both. I talked about it on the Andy Herman's show a couple of days ago, or yesterday. If you're a player and you don't like your tape, it's not the responsibility of the coach to fix it. Now, the coach's responsibility is to put players in position to make plays and give them the tools to find success, right? That is their job. If you don't feel like they're doing their job, then I'll be damned if it's me, I'm going to go find a way to learn how to do my job better. And I think this is where there's some of this disconnect. It's not like, we got a left guard making, I think somewhere north, $18-20 million, right? If I'm getting beat inside a bunch, and it's either if it's because of my footwork, I'm going to fix my footwork. And if it's because my center isn't coming with me when he should, then we're going to have a conversation. And it's going to be like immediate. Right. And you just don't know what's happening there. And I single that one thing out because it's just, it's easy and obvious, but that happens all over the field. And you just have to be of the opinion that if the problem's not going to solve itself and we got to go solve it. And if it means that I got to go solve it and, or whatever my way of doing is going to find a solution, you've got to be hungry for the solution more so than being complacent and just saying like, oh, we'll get them next week. We're going to band together and try harder. Like that sounds great. It doesn't really work, right? And this is an extremely, extremely talented football team. So they can get better really, really quickly. Sean Ryan looked good at center. Should I talk to my family all the rest of the week? Yep. Which one of these is the least qualified starter? Any of these three arterial O linemen could be that guy. Disagree with that. Yeah, talking about the 4th and 1 play. Why are we not giving the right guard help? It's a bang decision and play call is why. This is the other thing. Somebody sent me a clip from somebody else, and they're pointing out these things. Guys, I'm just not going to comment on other people's clips just because, unless it's like you send me something from Dan Orlovsky or one of those guys where I'm like, okay, I can see the same thing, or we're looking through the same lens. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just I don't think it's fair to anybody. So. I think the finality of a game like this is you do have to. The hard part about this game, the good thing is it's a quick turnaround. The hard part about this game is those guys aren't going to go in and watch the tape with their team. Now, maybe these guys after last night, they're like, "Hey, everybody in here on Tuesday, we're going to watch this together. Like our groups are going to watch it together. Quarterback's going to lead it, whatever, right?" But the coaching staff has to prep for next week's game now, and so. They don't have the luxury of going through this with a fine-tooth comb, which, quite frankly, after a game like that on offense, you need to do that. You just need, and everybody needs to, like, the best thing about sports and the worst thing about sports is there are days on a Monday where, like, I gave up, when I was in Green Bay, I gave up a sack to Phillip Daniels against the Chicago Bears. And I think we fumbled the football and we lost the game. And I had, you have to go in the next day. You got to look everybody in the eye and you got to watch this tape and you're held accountable in front of everyone for doing something that you shouldn't have done, or getting beat on something that, again, like, every time you get beat in the National Football League, not every time is because of poor technique, but most of the time, like, my technique sucked. I got beat, and you got to go sit there. And you got the running back, you got the wide receiver who's going to get the ball, you got the tight end who's trying to make a block, you got all your line mates, you got the quarterback who's is the franchise, and you're sitting there and you're going, okay, the gravity of this is I'm not good enough at my job, so I made the mistake that cost these guys the opportunity to win a football game, make more money, all this stuff, right? And like that is a very humbling and awesome part of sports is you get to celebrate the victories as a team, but you also, in the right situations, are held accountable for these actions. And one of the problems I think sometimes with these short weeks is you more than likely are not held accountable for these actions, not corrected on these actions, not talking through these actions with your teammates, particularly on the communication stuff that we talked about, so that we can continue to evolve and improve. So let's hope they're doing that today. If I would be shocked if they weren't, particularly on offense, but you never know. We'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Certainly next week. Listen, the road doesn't get any easier. This was a very difficult football game. You don't expect these guys to have two bad games in a row on offense. So, we do expect a bounce back here, but they got some stuff they got to figure out. And, it's not going to be like, I expect them to score a lot of points next week, but it doesn't mean the problem solved. It's in these situations, at least for me, this is as much about process and how you're doing things as anything else. Like, does it look right aside from the fact that, Christian Watson outran this person, or Josh Jacobs made two people miss in the hole, or, whatever, right? Like, are we consistently winning? Like, one thing, if you watch the other side, Philly's got some really good offensive linemen. So regardless if it was like a 3-yard run, a 4-yard run, an 8-yard run, whatever, more often than not, like if you looked at the left side of their line, it's like it's moving people off the ball. So you're doing that at a consistent basis. Now a safety can come and can make a play. The outside linebacker can come in and beat the tight end like a lot. But I'm just talking about when you look at like the left guard and left tackle, they're doing this every time. You're going to have success if you find enough people who can do that, right? Take their person, move them off the spot, or execute at whatever level that is required given the positional requirements of your sport. So that was a very long-winded way of saying we got opportunities to grow. Guys, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button. Keep leaving me comments, rate and review me, the whole thing. And hit me up on Twitter, Mike Wahle 68. Always fun talking. Always fun with the interaction. Thank you very much. We will get to the preview show later on in the week. Until then, enjoy your time. Enjoy your week.